right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. We are inside the command center, and to help us break it all down for a Monday night matchup against the Bears, Ryan Fowler is here. Ryan, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Doug. Hope you're doing well as well, and always good to be here.
Absolutely. Interesting, Ryan. This thing, and you're on social media enough to know this thing has quietly become a rivalry. Can a team outside of the division, but in the conference, be a rivalry? And do you find it amusing? How do you take all of the back and forth between the two fan bases?
Yeah, so Doug, I don't know if it's a rivalry yet. I don't know if it's there yet. I think when we look back to the old days of the Commanders where you had the rivalries with the Giants or the Niners or the Cowboys, of course. I don't think we're there yet. I don't even know if we ever see again that level of rivalry for Redskins and Cowboys of yesteryear. I know there's back and forth with fan bases. These quarterbacks are always going to be tied to each other. This entire quarterback class, really, of 2024 is going to be tied to each other. But nights like tonight are fun. You see young two guys going at it in prime time, a national spotlight. And I'm just excited to play ball to see how these two show up.
We're going to get to the game, obviously, but you bring up a great point. That is going to end up being one of these draft classes that we talk about for a while. I know we talked about the draft classes. I forget how you had those quarterbacks ranked though.
Yeah, I had Caleb 1, Drake 2, Jaden 3 for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was, listen, we had on dozens of people before that draft cycle, and it was about as close as I can remember it being between the Drake Mays and because Caleb just was presumed number one anyway, so he didn't really get talked about in the conversation. It really was just Drake May and Jaden Daniels, and to me, it was always a pick your poison. And I think we see that from Drake now. The one that I didn't get was my affinity for the Georgia Bulldogs, and I watch a ton of SEC football. The one I didn't get right, Ryan, was Bo Nix. He's been spectacular. And
Yeah.
I guess I paid too much attention to the Auburn tape and not enough time with the Oregon tape. He's been fantastic.
Well, even and I'm the same way with Michael Penix. I wasn't the biggest Michael
Sure.
Penix supporter. Watching him at Indiana, where at times he looked unplayable, and really even going back further, Doug, when I talked about Hendon Hooker when he was at Virginia Tech, it wasn't good, and then he goes to Josh Heupel at Tennessee, and it just blows up the SEC. So I think a lot of these guys over the last few years can kind of have that conversation, and really it's kind of nice now too, as much as we talk about the transfer portal, whether it's hurting college football or good for college football, where we're looking at these quarterbacks enjoying different systems. Maybe it helps some of these guys as far as just enjoy the progression and a mature player, like you mentioned with Bo Nix, to where it wasn't perfect at Auburn, goes to Oregon, showcases himself, and now he's had some success out there for Denver, of course.
There was a time period where, and I'm thinking like of the Anthony Richardsons of the world, right? Where it was like, let's draft based on potential and what we think we can do with them. The problem is, and you know this, coaches say that, and then they get to the league and they don't have time to teach a guy that's got less than, 15 starts under his belt. It feels like now we are moving back to a place where the Jane Daniels, the Bo Nix, the experience is important because when you get to the league, we just don't have time to train you like we used to.
Yeah, and I think also, Doug, beyond that, I mean, look at all the quarterbacks in the 24 class. Look at the support systems that all
Yeah.
these guys have. Right? Look at Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson. I mean, hopefully Cam Ward gets his guy in Tennessee for as far as the 2025 guys, but you got Cliff, you got Kevin O'Connell with McCarthy, you got Zach Robinson with Michael Penix. I mean, the names go on. Sean Payton, of course, with Bo Nix. So there's support systems as well as far as these organizations, buying into these young players, not just who they are as individuals, but also giving them that shoulder to lean on in the classroom before they ever get out inside the hashes and are asked in this microwave society to where everybody expects things so quickly to have the support system around them to succeed right away.
Speaking of support systems, I know you know a lot of people around the league. I'm curious as to if you've heard, does Cliff actually want to be a head coach again, or do you think he's found his love language in just grinding the tape and calling the plays? Because we've seen it before. Like some guys just aren't set to be head coaches. There's a whole lot more that goes into being a head coach than being a head coach. There's a lot of responsibilities all over the place. and not everybody likes it. Have you heard? Do you have any idea whether he wants another shot at the big gig?
Yeah, the only thing I've heard is that he just absolutely loves being an OC. And
Yeah.
as you just mentioned, Doug, I mean, I couldn't say it any better as far as just that's okay, just being an OC. Being a head coach is an entire different responsibilities of things you have to do for all three phases of the game and stuff beyond football as well. And that's why I even give credit to a guy like Ron Rivera, all the stuff he dealt with when he was head coach, even though it wasn't the best product on the football field. But yeah, Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, if he wants a job, I think after this cycle, he's going to get it. Does that maybe throw a wrench into this offense and what this offense is going to look like in the future? I'm sure they'd find a guy that fits what they want to do. But as of right now, I specifically have not heard anything about Cliff Kingsbury, but I do know that he loves Jaden Daniels, he loves Washington, and he loves flat out just being an OC and calling plays. And as we've seen the last 2 years, this offense is pretty fun to watch every week, no matter who's out there.
Dan Quinn is familiar with offensive coordinators that will eventually become head coaches. I can't imagine that they don't have a succession plan in place. They've loaded that offensive room with guys like Tavita Pritchard, who got interviews last year. They have Anthony Lynn with former head coaching experience. They've got Brian Johnson, who was the offensive coordinator with the Eagles. They have people in place that have watched Cliff and how this offense goes. It feels like they've set themselves up so that even if and when Cliff leaves, they can go in-house if they want to and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and that's how the best organizations are really run. And I'm still kind of used to getting new to how describing Washington as a high-level organization, Doug. But really, I always look at Detroit and Dan Campbell right now. You know, I love Aaron Glenn. I love Ben Johnson. I know Aaron has had his struggles in New York. But look at Detroit and the assistants that they've had now step up into roles, and they're still rolling right away. That's how the best organizations are run from top to bottom. So as you just mentioned, the names that are there, and I wouldn't even be shocked, Doug. I know this is maybe not I mean, it is a sexy name, but as far as just the personality, I don't know what happens to Mike McDaniel in Miami, but as far as a creative offensive type of genius that may be best in an OC specific type of role, I mean, we can't sit here and not act like Miami's had some explosive offenses when he's been there and everyone's really involved and engaged. We'll see what that happens. I'm just throwing out a name, but if he doesn't, you know, that tenure doesn't continue in Miami, I wouldn't be shocked Mike McDaniel maybe gets an interview here as well.
Of course, Mike McDaniel was on that staff with Kyle Shanahan when he was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta. So as we know, it's a relationship business. So that would make a lot of sense too. I also know they're very high on a guy that maybe a lot of people have heard the name, but David Blau is a big part of like some of this stuff that they've got going on offensively. Easy for me to say. And so I'll be curious to see what happens with him. A lot of those big plays people talk about, the trick plays, are David Blau calls.
Absolutely. It's really a full coaching tree and watching, not just Cliff, you know, calling out plays. It's everybody watching film and even looking at last week, that play with Bill Krosky-Merritt pulling Tyler Biadasz to the outside. That was a look that the Chargers really showed against the Giants in the prior week. And then Cliff attacks that again with that motioning corner, that boundary corner to the opposite side, freeing up that opposite end. It's just really good stuff from week to week to where it's just, I know we're watching games, Doug, and we're saying, oh, wow, there's a touchdown. But there's so many more layers to everything that you're seeing, why you're running plays to set up certain plays. And I just can't say enough good things what Cliff has done with this offense so far.
Their running game, and I'm curious if you have thoughts on like how you divvy up the responsibilities there between Cliff and Anthony Lynn for the success. I'm sure neither one of those guys care who gets the credit for it as long as it's going. It's a top 5 rushing offense in almost every statistical category. And as I mentioned earlier, I never hate to stop saying how much I love my Georgia Bulldogs. It has been nice, Ryan, to be able to see a running back for this team be able to hit the edge and go. It feels like you got to go back to like Clinton Portis before we had a guy be able to hit that stretch and go.
Yeah, I was even thinking even Alfred Morris a little bit, but he didn't have enough juice. Bill has much more juice, right, than an Alfred Morris. But as far as a line of pure RB1, I'm right there with you. You haven't had that really since the RG3 Alfred Morris, really the introduction of RPOs, in the NFL when they dominated in 2012. So I love watching Bill Krosky-Merritt. I love watching this offensive line get after each other. And for me, when I think about this front five, I could talk about Laramie Tunsil all day or Biadasz kicking people's ass up front, but it's really Chris Paul at left guard. A guy that's taken advantage of an opportunity as a guy that's a prior regime day 3 pick, not out of a major Power 5 program, Power 4 now, but out of Tulsa, that's come in and busted his tail. He's even looked upon as the second best offensive lineman in his darn family with Patrick Paul down there with the Dolphins. So I'm just really proud and happy for a guy like Chris Paul that's come in and taken advantage of reps and really led this front five, specifically in the ground game, where every single game, no matter who they play, no matter when they play them, is going to stem from their success in the ground game every single week.
Tough deal to be an NFL player, period. I want to share this with you just because I want the audience to be able to hear it. When I had Grant Paulson on last week for Inside the Command Center, right before we got off the podcast, I said, "Hey, what's the deal with Brandon Coleman?" Right, because I thought he played serviceably at left. If you told me we were going to have to play him at left tackle this year, I wouldn't have cried about it. I thought he did a good job last year. They get Laremy Tunsil. You don't turn that down. So they have to call, imagine this. They call Brandon Coleman and say, "Hey, we got Laremy Tunsil, big guy. We're going to need you to move to right tackle." Draft comes on the phone. "Hey, BC, we didn't realize we were going to even be able to get this kid, Connerly Jr. We're going to need you to go left guard." And so you just spend, I feel bad. I don't feel bad for Brandon Coleman. He is an NFL player and he gets paid money to do it. But to train for left tackle, then train for right tackle, then train for left guard, it had to have been a frustrating offseason for him. I hope he gets it all worked out. But I think to your point, the incredible story here is Chris Paul just sitting in the wings, busting his tail off, working his ass off, and getting the opportunity. And to me, I don't know what you think. I think the tape says he's been one of the better offensive linemen on this team. And that's saying something because that line's played pretty good.
Yeah, he's getting after people in the ground game. He fits as far as the body type that Cliff Kingsbury wants, back to his days even in college, as far as guys in the upper half that are thick, wide body players. Look at Allegretti, look at Sam Cosmi, you look at Chris Paul, big physical guys that want to get A to B. And I mean, I'm right with you, though, with the Brandon Coleman stuff. I liked Brandon Coleman out of TCU. He's tackle guard versatile. You love to see it. And if the end of the year saying they were going to play left tackle, and I was right with you as far as last year, there were some good moments. The Tampa Bay game against Yaya Diaby, that's a little rough, but he was a rookie, and guys have stretches like that. I'm not asking him to be Penny Sewell or Joe Alt right away, but I still do like Brandon Coleman. I don't know how much he's going to have to improve, Doug, to show this coaching staff that he deserves another crack at it, getting along the front five, because Sam Cosmi coming back is not helping him. He's only going to move further down the depth chart because Andrew Wiley's now going to be likely that swing guard potentially. So we'll see what that happens. And the trade deadline's coming up too. Is this a guy maybe you get a fifth or sixth for, because the teams always need offensive line help? But again, as a player, I feel for him. I think he could still play ball at the NFL level and start, whether it's at tackle or guard. And if it's not in Washington, then I wish the best for him. But at the end of the day, that is a day 2 pick.
Like, we're all excited about the idea of Sam Cosmi coming back. Yeah. You and I know, and I'm sure most of the viewers do, offensive line is like a gelling type thing, right? I think more than any other unit in the sport, they need reps together. And while I'm excited to have Cosmi back, Wiley's been quietly really good there at that spot. Are you concerned at all about the unit having to re-gel over there on the right side once Cosmi gets back, where you're like, what a stud, I can't wait to get him back? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm kind of on both sides of the hedge there, Doug. I really am, because rapport and chemistry absolutely does matter along their front.
And they're playing great as a unit.
And they really are. And especially with Cosmi, where you're coming in and really you could argue he's the best. You could argue that he's one of the best, if the best right guard in all of football. You could argue that.
Yes.
But you have a rookie, right, at right tackle. And I think we all like Josh Connerly. He's taken his lumps so far this year, but he's done better. And I'm interested to see how he does again tonight in the big matchup with the national spotlight on him. But I think I'm on the side, Doug, of, look, Sam Cosmi's a stud. Plug him, play him. This group up front, all those guys healthy along the front five, now including Chris Paul. You got a really good group that you can win the trenches, and that's what's going to translate, I think, bottom line, Doug, is whether you're playing now in mid-October or you have the privilege, again, of playing into January or potentially we get to February, right, if you catch my drift. That's going to translate winning the trenches along the front five. So I'm excited to see when Sam gets back, likely next week against Dallas, because they can't stop anybody. And the Commanders, I also they could force you to put my foot in my mouth too. Next week, go out and score 21, and I'm sitting here saying, hey, they're going to score 45. You just know how the NFL goes. But I'm excited to see Sam Cosmi along this really, really good group up front for the Commanders.
Bears giving up about 6.1 yards per rush on defense. This ought to be a game in which there's, again, no Noah Brown, again, no Terry McLaurin. Like, we kind of need this rush game to be what drives the car here, and it has been the last couple of weeks. I worry that Cliff sees Jaden back there and gets excited about passing the ball all over the yard. And while I would too, looking at him back there, it was easier to see with Mariota back there than really dig into that run game and make it easier for everybody. Obviously, Mariota, Jaden Daniels, we know the difference, but like last week, that's how they started out, right? They started passing. I said, man, if Cliff doesn't get back to this running game, I'm be upset.
Mhm.
What do we have to do to keep Cliff on the straight and narrow here and keep pounding the rock? Because to me, that's where the Bears are truly susceptible at.
Yeah, and even looking at the home away splits for Chicago, where they've allowed almost 210 yards a game on the ground away from
Hmm.
Soldier Field. The numbers
Okay.
aren't good bottom line, right? That's the bottom line with Chicago, but nearly again 200 yards away from Soldier Field on the ground. You got to get after them. And if it's not working, I still think you go after them. You know, there's not a guy along this front seven. They have players, and then we can talk about what Montez could do all day long, or some of the flash plays they've seen from
Brady
their
Jarrett's out this game.
Exactly. So there's some of the players up front that they have some names, and they're going to get some TJ Edwards back, which helps them along the front seven. But overall, you're going to have to get after it inside the tackles to the fringe areas. The screen game is going to have to get involved, make those corners tackle, see what Kyler Gordon can do now that he's coming back from injury. How many snaps does he play? So if it's not even working really the first 2 or 3 series, keep going at it, I think, for me. Well, and if you get down, of course, you're going to have to throw it a little bit. But this is a team also that you can't play man against Jaden Daniels because you got to keep your eyes on the quarterback
That's
too,
right.
right? So you're going to have to play some zone and keep your eyes there. So it's going to give you some opportunities to really do whatever you want, I think, for Washington on offense tonight. And I think they're going to have a lot of fun. There's going to be some fireworks. And it could be an old Big 12 type shootout, 49, 44. I don't know if we'll see that, but I think there's going to be some points scored tonight on either side.
With the 2 receivers that I already mentioned being out, and you're looking at very young receiving core in there,
Yeah.
does it at all make you nervous? Would you give pause to continue allowing Debo to run kickoffs? I mean, he is so good, leads the league in kickoff yards, and I understand what that gets you. At the same time, I don't even want to begin to contemplate what the receiver looks like if we can't get Debo out there, who I guess had a little bit of a heel injury already.
Yeah.
If you're Dan Quinn, what do you do with Debo?
That's a great question, Doug. I wouldn't have him back there. You know, I think if the heel
Yeah.
is an issue as far as that much in the acceleration and changing direction, then I wouldn't have him. That's why you drafted Jalen Lane. I think Luke McCaffrey's done a fine job.
Number
But I'll
2
also
in
say,
return yards.
yeah, and I'll also say this too, Doug. I'm interested to see the snap count tonight for guys like Ja'Cory Brooks and Tay Martin. I'm not asking them to go out and get, 7 targets combined. I don't know what the snap count is going to be for them as guys elevated. We'll see if they're even active when the inactives come out here in a little bit. But I think both those players, specifically Ja'Cory, as a highly recruited kid that played under Nick Saban, was everything for Louisville last year. I think talent-wise, he's as good or a little bit better for me than Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey. And that puts you right now right behind Deebo Samuel in this offense as far as talent for me. And I think I'm going to give this kid some opportunities to make some plays. Because as we know, and we saw last year, Jaden Daniels, it doesn't matter who's on the outside. He elevated Olamide Zaccheaus and got him a contract in Chicago. And he got Diami a contract in Jacksonville. That's really the elite trait of some of these franchise type of guys, to elevate whoever is around you. So I think that tonight I'm interested to see some of these young guys, what Cliff wants to do with them, because we have seen Tay Martin involved. If Debo is not 100%, if he's not even 70 to 80%, who are you going to rely on in certain high leverage situations, specifically, Doug, if you're trailing in this ball game and you're going to have to push it down the field?
Are you surprised? I know I am that they decided to elevate Chris Moore instead of Ja'Cory Brooks. I really thought that was a time where maybe he would get it. I know the other 2 guys, him and Martin, have actual NFL snaps behind him, but let's be honest, they were practice squad players for a reason.
Yeah.
I would have liked to seen what the kids got.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think with Chris, he's been a great summer story. He's played, obviously, had some moments early on in the year. The drop touchdown last week, it can't happen. As you mentioned earlier with Brandon Coleman, I'm not going to feel bad for him. He's getting paid to play a kid's game. I'm not going to feel bad for you. You got to catch the ball or you're going to go somewhere else. So I think this receivers room, bottom line, we've been talking about for months now. Noah, get healthy. Terry, it's been just a facade for the last too long. It's been too long. We've relied on Terry so long, year after year after year. to be there, and he always has been. And now here we are with finally our guy under center and a really good team and a really good front five, and you're just like, where is Terry McLaurin? So I just want to see other guys step up. It's the NFL. No one's going to feel bad for you. No, the Commanders aren't sneaking up on anybody this year. The Bears obviously want to come back on people, right? Northwest Stadium, the Hail Mary stuff. I get all that, but no one's going to feel bad for them. So these guys got to step up. They got to make plays, and Jaden's got to execute when the time is called.
Last week was the first time since Zach Ertz got to Washington that he didn't have a reception.
Yeah.
We are seeing Ben Sinnott get more and more work as he showed off his prowess in the blocking game. He has been fun to watch. They're going to use more 12 personnel with those two blockers. I wonder if we are finally, Ryan, after all this time of casually begging to see more of Sinnott in the game, because he's looked great when given his opportunities.
I would like to see him involved more as a flex weapon. They didn't draft him to be John Bates. They just didn't. And I want to see more of him in that, not in line directly, but just get out in space a little bit. Red zone threat, front pylon. We saw it last year a little bit. He's not involved really at times at all. And John Bates isn't even out there. And then Zach Ertz isn't getting a catch. So where are you, Ben Sinnott? Because even earlier portions of the year, Colson Yankoff was out snapping him offense and special teams combined. That's a day 2 pick. And there's a lot of tight ends around football that are even free agents that you could probably bring in to get you a catch or two. So I want to see more of him as a flex weapon. I give him credit for sticking his face in the mud as a blocker, but they didn't draft him out of Kansas State, and that's not what he was at Kansas State. He wasn't Darnell Washington. He wasn't Daniel Bellinger, where he could be a further extension of the offensive line. And that's fine to fit that role. But for me and this offense, you got to further expand it east, west, north, south. I want to see more of Ben Sinnott in the intermediate areas, because right now, what's the future at tight end beyond Zach Ertz whenever he hangs him up? And right now, I really don't know for this Commanders offense.
Thank you, shouting out my big O, Darnell Washington, and got a couple catches from Aaron Rodgers finally. Ryan, last week was an interesting game against the Chargers. We know the woes and injury problems they've had on the offensive line. So, I guess, what do you make of the defense that was explosive last week against what was a bad offensive line? However, I'll say they've got a top 5 quarterback back there. They've got one of the better receiving cores in Quentin Johnson and Ladd McConkey, and the ageless wonder in Keenan Allen. I mean, that was still so that they still went up against that. So on one hand, I say, good job, boys. You got the job done, right? On the other hand, I say, how do I really know that it wasn't the intense pressure you were able to get all game long that helped out the secondary? Or did you figure it out? Or did they finally send blitzes? I would love to see them just get after the Caleb again tonight with 5 and 6 man pressures instead of 4 and backing out. This team needs that kind of pressure. What do you make of the defensive performance last week?
Yeah, I think early on in that game, Doug, I thought they were going to get run out of the gym.
Yes.
That was a huge play by Quan Martin over the middle of the field. Those are the types of plays that you need from your defense. And that's the type of player or plays that you need from those types of players that are core foundational players like Quan is. And I think Quan is still one of the more underrated safeties, young players in football, in my honest opinion. I love watching him play all 3 levels. But I think overall last week, I still have a lot of concerns with this team really on the back end, because if you're not able to get home really with 4 or 5, what's this coverage unit going to look like? Because when you brought in Marshawn Lattimore, and on any of the shows I've ever been on or my podcast or whatever, I know I'm on Marshawn's really in my doghouse a little bit, because you didn't trade for him really with an asterisk next to his name saying, hey, if the front 4 does get home, then we're okay. But if they don't, we're having an Emmanuel Forbes situation. That can't happen. And that's what I've seen consistently. And last week, you just mentioned all the names that they had on the outside. I thought they did a fine job because the front 4 got home. But tonight, where, yes, Darnell Wright's going to be back and they got some changes up front. What happens if Dorrance Armstrong, who's top 5 in the league in sacks right now, what if he can't get home, or Von Miller or Jacob Martin, or the interior, which is pretty darn good for Chicago, is able to handle Daron Payne, Johnny Newton, the names up front, Javon Kinlaw? What's going to happen with this back end? Because they got a lot of talent on the perimeter. But I will say this also. Look at Luther Burden, 39th overall selection out of Missouri. He went over 100 yards against Dallas, but in 2 of the 4 games this year, he's gone for negative yardage, including last week against the Raiders. So they want to get him more involved, yes, to get the ball in his hands quickly at the line of scrimmage, but they want to get the ball out of Caleb's hands quickly under center. And I think that's the biggest thing looking at this thing for tonight. You got to get after the quarterback. If I'm really scheming it up, Doug, I'm sending pressure off of his arm side to force him left. That's the biggest thing for me. Don't let him play hero ball. Don't let him escape to his right. Don't let him get his feet going. And really, bottom line, where Ben Johnson's offense has always been best with Jared Goff, Caleb and Jared are very different players, but they are best under center when they're in rhythm. Don't allow him to get in rhythm and just know where he's going at each snap, and he's walking the line of scrimmage saying, I know exactly where I'm going. Muddy the looks up, and I think the Commanders are going to have some success tonight.
We talked about this on Friday's podcast when EJ Snyder was on, and our good friend Matt Waldman, who is incredibly smart and talented at what he does, told me a couple of years ago, he said, Doug, there's 2 kind of quarterbacks. There are chefs and bakers. And bakers, they get the ingredients and they follow them specifically where that cake doesn't rise. The chefs, they can take the ingredients and make art out of it. And I think Caleb is a chef that needs to work on being a baker. And I think that as I thought about it the last week or so, that Jayden probably is a baker that has some chef skills in his pocket. How do you view Jayden as a passer now?
Yeah, I think I'll even use a similar analogy. I guess you win games, some guys with quarterbacks because of, and you can also win games with players. This isn't a shot at Jalen Hurts, but you win games with Jalen Hurts. You don't win games because of Jalen Hurts. I think for me, you win games. You could win a game because of Dak Prescott. I think you could win a game absolutely because of Jayden Daniels. And that's kind of where I'm at with it, because all we saw last year with not the best surroundings. I mean, give him the surroundings that Jalen has in Philadelphia. And what's this offense going to look like? I mean, it's just week after week after week, his ability to win inside of structure. And that's what Caleb's talked about all offseason, and what Ben Johnson said after every darn game and every pregame presser he's had is we want to see Caleb continue to work and succeed inside the tackle box and inside of structure. And there's a reason why they drafted all these guys and paid all these guys within the interior to come in this year. They want him to win and inside of structure, not asking him to win like he did consistently at Oklahoma and at USC. But for Jayden's perspective under center as a passer, his ability to just know what he's looking at consistently, whether he's sliding protections, then he's looking up and understanding what the safeties are doing pre-snap, rotating post-snap. He understands when to get the ball out. I would like to see him get down a little bit more. I think that's something we all want to see him stay healthy, because I know everyone's out there quick to say, oh, he's RG3. That stuff's ridiculous. But as a passer overall, I already think he's a top 5 to 7 passer in football. And he's only going to progress as the games go on.
They had run this running back by committee thing. I understand that. Have you seen enough from Bill to make this not a running back by committee type of affair? I think the last couple of weeks they've run Bill early and then let the other 2 guys kind of hammer the game home. Is that what you'd like to see?
So I'll say this, Doug. I'll take this minute. I never like to pat myself on the back. I never do, specifically in draft evaluations. I loved what I saw from Bill in the draft process coming out of Arizona, where he didn't even play. He was a practice squad running back. And watching him at Shrine live was outstanding. And I thought, well, if he goes anywhere, this is a guy that really has the goods, some of the traits to be a playmaker. And when Washington drafted him, immediately for me, Doug, and I'm not just speaking here because now it's worked out, but I immediately thought that talent-wise, he was the most talented running back in Washington's room. And that was when he was RB5, RB6 on the depth chart. So now, as we've seen the success that he has, where it's consistently his ability to gain chunk plays, or his ability to just find creases and consistently get 2-3 yards if you're hitting the backfield, the little things, because he doesn't have the frame of a Jonathan Taylor or even a Brian Robinson or even an Austin Eckler. He's a smaller type of running back, but the vision and the quickness, and just if it's not there, create something. Those are the things in his game that you can't teach, and that's why you just can't take him off the field. For me, he's clear RB1. I think he deserves 15 to 18, 19 touches a game right now, and you're going to take pressure off of Jayden Daniels if you have that type of ball carrier. So I still like Jeremy. I still like Chris Rodriguez in certain spurts, maybe combined 5 to 7 touches a game, but Bill's your RB1. Really run him till the wheels fall off, in my opinion, because this front 5 is going to push some people around. So Bills at number 22 is had a great start so far. I'm happy he's going as a 7th-round pick. That's a big hit for Adam Peters and company.
There's a tweet for everything, and mine was from a Ben Standig post from back in May, where I said, "Bill, week 5, bookmark it." I'll pat my shoulder on
Yeah, there
that
you go.
one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe Witt comes to you and says, "What's the plan for stopping Caleb Williams and that passing attack?" And you say what?
Yeah, I think right now, I know it's tough to say, hey, press man, get after Caleb Williams, muddy the looks as much as you can. You got to get after him. I'm an aggressive type of person. If I'm a DC, I'm an aggressive type of guy. I got to get after him. I'm forcing him off the spot. I'm muddying the looks. I'm trusting my offense to get us up 7-0, 10-0 in this ball game. And then you can maybe relax the pressure a little bit and drop 7 if you have to. But I think, again, arm side pressure. I'm not scared of DeAndre Swift. I think you're going to be fine in your base looks on run defense. Gap discipline is going to be big. Rush lane discipline is going to be big. Get off the field on 3rd down. 3rd and 8s or longer. You can't have Rome Odunze open at the sticks for a 12. You can't have it happen. He's been everything for them on the outside. How they cover him and prepare for him. Is it Lattimore? Is it Amos? Is it bracketed over the top? That's going to be important. Tight ends are a little bit more involved. They're going to test Bobby Wagner in coverage. What do they do with Jordan McGee? So I know it's a lot of things right there, but I think it's just living your base downs as far as your gap discipline in the run game, arm side pressure from Caleb Williams, and muddy the looks as much as you can early, first 2 or 3 series of this ball game.
And that Chicago team runs a lot of 12 personnel.
Yes.
You would think that would allow them to get McGee on the field some more in their base 43 sets, who I know you'd like to see more of. I know I'd like to see more of. They say it's because enough teams aren't in that 40, don't allow them to get into that 43 base. I say, I don't care. You've got to find some way to get that kid on the field as much as possible.
Agreed.
If he's on the field tonight, are you using him as a spy for Caleb Williams? Would you spy Caleb Williams, or no, you set the defense out there and just keep your assignments?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think until he proves that he consistently wants to run, right now it's a lot of parallel stuff. It's more like Justin Herbert, I think, right now as a runner. I think Justin doesn't even get enough credit for him as a runner. He's got some athleticism, as a big body. I wouldn't spy him right away. I just think you have to stay disciplined in your rush lanes and keep him to the interior and bring him down. That's the bottom line. Tackle the football in the pocket, get him to the ground, make him look up at the sky a little bit, not up at the defense consistently. And you'll see how that process for him consistently speeds up. I mean, he's been better when he's blitzed this year, when he's not blitzed. So that tells you kind of what he is under center as far as, hey, when they're not even sending pressure, he's going to force throws. Now, I will say this. I've been very impressed with the progression of him over the middle of the field. That 10 to 20-yard range of the offense has had a lot of success for Caleb, where a lot of young quarterbacks, I'm talking about Jalen Hurts again, but he doesn't throw to the middle of the field because you got to throw over the backer, you got to throw in front of the safety. A lot of people don't want to do that. And if you got that corner and trail coming around you, that's 3 guys right there. You got to make a tough, tight window throw to. But overall, just get after him under center. And I think muddy looks as much as possible. I think you're going to have some success this week.
Merle Garrett in the chat says Luke gets 100 yards tonight. I don't know if he'll get 100 yards, but I do think it's important to mention this. People were shocked that he was so much better when Mariota was in the game. And I think it's important, as you well know, Luke was on the second team. So who's throwing him the ball in practice? Mariota does, right? I mean, Jaden's throwing to the one. So maybe it just wasn't the familiarity that was there. And the fact Luke's in year 3 as a wide receiver. It's nice to see his progression. And he essentially Debo's wide receiver 1, I guess. Luke's wide receiver number 2 today. Interesting to see what the reps and the lineups and where they have Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane, as because Debo's usually moving around a lot. Interesting to see how they line them up tonight.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be really, this first 2 offensive series are always big. They're the most scripted series of the ball game before you really get into adjusting what you want to do on early downs and through the air as well. I'm right there with you. I think Luke and Jalen, you could say they're 1A or 1B and 1C tonight, right behind Debo. We'll see how healthy Debo actually is. We'll tell very early on as far as how he's moving. I think he's okay. I really do. Is that 100%? I don't know. I don't think anybody at this point is 100%. That's right. But you need big games from these guys. They're not just 5th and 6th round flyers. These are guys you spend some decent capital on. They've made some plays early on, but you want maybe even just a deep shot like we saw from Tez Johnson yesterday for Tampa Bay to maybe Jalen Lane. Make a play deep. We saw it Luke last week. just a couple plays here and there where you can look at them and say, hey, maybe the defense now, we got to at least respect these guys on the outside, because you still just don't have McLaurin and you don't have Noah Brown. And Zach Ertz, I think, is going to get involved tonight, but Ben Sinnott, uninvolved. Don't really have a lot out of the backfield right now. That's something they're working on with Bill. So you kind of see here's some of the cons of this offense, but some of the pros will very quickly show up if Jaden, of course, can elevate those guys, specifically Jalen and Luke tonight, and put some points on the board.
This is not a Terry McLaurin hate question. I just find it a little fascinating. By the time he gets back, Debo's been incredible, and I think is maybe the number one on the target list for Jaden. The way Bill's been playing, it feels like he's number 2 on the weapons list. Where does Terry fit into the pecking order of things when he gets back? Because I think it's an interesting question.
For me, it's 1.
Okay.
For me, it's 1. I don't think that changes. And again, it is unfortunate all these years that we've seen him out there with quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. And then now you got your guy, and your team just came off an NFC title game appearance, and it's been a whole just barrage of just this and this and the contract, and now you're hurt, and now here we are in week 6 and you're not out there again. I think he is weapon 1 on this offense, and I just want to see the full band back together. You're starting to get some pieces. You get Bates back and you get Cosby back. It's unfortunate what happened to Austin, but you've seen the breakout of Bill. Jaden's back. You want your full guys back. You want the 3 of Terry, Debo, Noah, and then your younger players to step up in the future. Now, I don't know exactly when we see Terry next. I'm not sure. But for me, when he's on the field, as long as he's on the field, he's going to be weapon 1 for this offense.
You surprised? I mean, it's been 4 weeks that they didn't put either Noah Brown or Terry on the short-term IR.
I think it's a little bit of a tricky question, because I could easily sit here and say, hey, even though if they would play all year long, it'd still be the correct decision not to put them on IR. Jonathan Jones, they put him on there. He should be able to come back next week, which is another question. I want to see what happens there. It was a question when it didn't happen because of how long they've been out, but I just think there's a lot of layers to it, Doug, that we can go either way to say yes or to say no. But I think overall, it doesn't really worry me too much.
All right. Dan Quinn comes to you and says, Ryan, what's the key to winning? You tell him what?
Run the ball. Run the football right at this group. Did it week 1 against the Giants with all the players that they had along that front 4 and 5. It's the easiest way to stop a pass rush. I think we know what Montez Sweat can do as far as a guy that can really ravage a game plan. He still can. Go run the ball. Run the ball. It's going to open everything up. They're going to bring another safety down. Jaquan Brister is going to be out there tonight, likely. Things can change, of course. But he's a young player that wants to play the robber spot, bring their depth down a little bit, and then go over the top. Because, again, it doesn't matter that, you're Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, and you got Jaden throwing the ball. They don't respect those guys. They just don't until you show it. And I think they're going to be able to play some press man, put some guys in the box, run at them, 4 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, break it out at the perimeter, use the screen game, and then open up play action, and then take your calculated shots with Jaden, with his feet. He's going to be able to have to get his legs involved as well. So I think they're going to be fine tonight, Doug. I really don't think they're going to have a lot of concerns scoring the ball, but I think it stems every single week with them being able to run the football and run it well.
The over-under is 49.5. The Commanders are giving 4.5 points to the Bears. You like the score to look like what?
Yeah, I got 31-21 Commanders tonight. I could even go higher. I was even thinking maybe like a 34-27, but I'm going to go 31-21. I think I really enjoyed at times seeing the adjustments from Joe Witt's defense as the game has gone on, and I think that's maybe what they'll do tonight. If they go down 7, they go down 10, who knows? I think the Commanders are going to score tonight. I think they're going to score easily and plentiful. Whether those are quick drives and tempo and no huddle, whether at their best, or they want to have a 15, 16 play yard drive. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to go 31-21, comfortable win for the Commanders. I do trust in this group, but they're going to have to limit these weapons early. Don't allow Caleb Williams to get into a rhythm, or bottom line could be a long night. He's very talented, very talented.
This is Ryan Fowler is my guest today, buddy. You're the best, man. I appreciate you doing this with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks as always, Doug. You're a great man.
All right, buddy.